Hi there everyone, Mohammed Najmi here, and today I have for you 10 interesting facts about books in relation to authors, libraries, books themselves, and so forth. If you like this episode, please share it with others. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please consider doing so. It would help me a lot. Okay, so let's get into our 10 interesting facts. So, here are the book-related facts for you. Number 1. There are 3 books in Harvard Library that are bound with human skin. So, Harvard Library confirmed with 99.9% certainty that a book titled Destinies of the Soul, it's a French book, the title is in French, so I'm translating the title, Destinies of the Soul, written by Arsène Housset, published around 1880, is bound in human skin. The book has been sitting in Harvard's Houghton Library since the 1930s and has had a note inside it from the donor, who explains that he had the book bound in human skin. The note is in French, obviously translated by Harvard, and it reads, "This book is bound in human skin parchment, on which no ornament has been stamped to preserve its elegance. By looking carefully, you easily distinguish the pores of the skin. A book about the human soul deserved to have a human covering. I had kept this piece of human skin taken from the back of a woman. It is interesting to see the different aspects that change the skin according to the method of preparation to which it is subjected. Compare, for example, with the small volume I have in my library, Severin Penou's De Virginatis Notis, which is also bound in human skin but tanned with sumac." Bit disturbing. But the other books he mentions, the Severin Penou's De Ingritatis and Corruptionis Virginum Notis, I hope I pronounced that somewhat right, is in the Wellcome Library's collection. The owner of Destinies of the Soul is said to have gotten the skin from the back of a female mental patient, as he said that he got it from the back of a woman. He actually got it from the back of a female mental patient whose body was unclaimed after dying from a stroke. So he didn't skin her alive, which is at least good to know. Known as anthropodermic bibliopegy, the practice of binding books in human skin wasn't actually all that uncommon in the past and dates back to at least the 15th century. People apparently used to have it done to memorialize the dead, among other reasons. Number 2. Warsaw is a city with the biggest number of libraries per capita, 11.5 libraries per 100,000 citizens. So for this fact, we travel to Poland. However, the number of libraries per capita does not necessarily mean books are loaned more. Tokyo leads this with 111.9 million library loans per year, with Shanghai and Hong Kong following close by, scoring 86.2 and 49.8 accordingly. New York takes third place with 56.3 million loans. But Warsaw in Poland remains the biggest number of libraries per capita region. Number 3. The world's largest fine for an overdue library book stands at $345.14, the amount owed at 2 cents a day. So this is interesting, right? So in April 1955, Kewanee Public Library in Illinois, USA, as Emily Kenlow Sims checked out a poetry book, Days and Deeds. Although the book was due back 19th of April 1955, Emily found it in her mother's house 47 years later and presented the library with a check for overdue fines. Reminds me a bit about the Seinfeld's episode about the overdue library card. Maybe this is where they took their inspiration from. Who knows? Number 4. The first ebook in the world is the Declaration of Independence, released in 1971. In 1971, technologist and futurist Michael Sternhardt was given access to a Xerox Sigma 5 mainframe at the University of Illinois. Inspired by a free printed copy of the Declaration of Independence, he decided to transcribe it into the computer. He made the file available to other users of the computer network, with the annotation that it was free to use and distribute, marking the beginning of the legendary Project Gutenberg, an initiative dedicated to making books freely available in digital format. If you haven't checked Project Gutenberg and you are interested in books and reading books a lot, I would really recommend it. It has a huge number of books available for free. Number 5. The Japanese language has a word to denote letting reading materials pile up in one's home and never read them. That word is Tsundoku, a term used to describe a person who owns a lot of unread literature. To be honest, I feel a bit called out here. I do have a lot of books that I haven't read yet. The word doku can be used as a verb to mean reading. According to Professor Gerstl from the University of London, the sun in Tsundoku originates in sumu, a word meaning to pile up. When put together, Tsundoku has a meaning of buying reading material and piling it up. The phrase Tsundoku sensei appears in text from 1879 according to the writer Maurice Senzo, which is likely to be satirical about a teacher who has a lot of books but doesn't read them. Number 6. The Raven in Edgar Allan Poe's Gothic classic was initially supposed to be a parrot. While writing The Raven, Poe fixed on a single word, nevermore, to be repeated throughout to anchor the melancholic ambience, but he needed a pretext for that word, since it would not be apt coming out of the mouth of a human. And when thinking of a non-reasoning creature repeating this word, his first thought was of a parrot. But luckily for him and the poem, and for us, he rejected the idea and chose instead a raven, infinitely more in keeping with the intended tone and also forming the title of it thereafter. Imagine that, if it would have been a parrot. I can't even bring myself to try to do the voice. 50 Shades of Grey started out as Twilight fan fiction. Okay, you know what? Let's skip this one. I don't really like either of those two things or care for them. Next one. Number 7. John Steinbeck's dog ate the original manuscript of Mice and Men. Okay, now this is seriously interesting. Let's explore that, shall we? Before the age of computers and what have you, manuscript faced the elemental dangers of fire, flooding, and so on. Or in Steinbeck's case, his dog actually eating his homework. In a May 27th letter to his editor, Elizabeth Otis, found in Steinbeck, A Life of Letters, the then 34-year-old John Steinbeck writes, and I read the relevant experts from it. Minor tragedy stalked. I don't know whether I told you. My setter pup, left alone one night, made confetti of about half of my manuscript book. 2 months' work to do over again. It sets me back. There was no other draft. I was pretty mad, but the poor little fellow may have been acting critically. I didn't want to ruin a good dog for a manuscript. I'm not sure it's good at all. He only got an ordinary spanking with his punishment fly swatter. But there's the work to do over from the start. I'm not sure Toby didn't know what he was doing when he ate the first draft. I promoted Toby Dog to be a lieutenant colonel in charge of literature. Annoying to happen, but funny at the same time. And good for all of us that he rewrote that part of the manuscript and published the book. Number 8. There are human libraries around the world where you can check out humans as a living book and listen to their unique life stories. I hope no one checks me out because it's gonna be a boring book. The Human Library is an international organization and movement that first started in Copenhagen in Denmark in 2000. It aims to address people's prejudices by helping them to talk to those they would not normally meet. The organization uses a library analogy of lending people rather than books. These people have experienced prejudice, social exclusion or stigma, and participants can ask them questions so as to learn about the other person and also challenge their own prejudices. The Human Library organization is active in over 80 countries, in which there are a few permanent human libraries, but most happen as events. It's a brilliant idea. I think so more of us should reenact it in our own areas. Number 9. So let's talk about the 3 most famous libraries in the world: the New York Public Library, National Library of China, and British Library in London. So the New York Library gets 17.3 million visitors per year. It has around 53 million items in 92 locations within the library. It is the 3rd largest library in the world. Its most famous in-house location is the main branch, which is easily recognizable by the 2 lion statues named Patience and Fortitude guarding its entrance. Largest in Asia, the National Library of China, situated in Beijing, prides itself for having the most impressive collection of Chinese literature and historical documents in the world. It gets 5 million visitors per year and has over 37 million items. Founded in 1909 by the government of the Qing dynasty, and the library stores an abundance of old maps, diagrams, and rubbings from ancient inscriptions, such as the precious copies of Buddhist sutras that date back to the 6th century. And to be honest, I think so the visitors should be a lot more than what they are right now when you compare the population of that region. Anyways, estimated to contain almost 200 million items, British Library in London is the largest national library in the world by the number of items catalogued. It gets about 170 to 200 million visitors per year, which is the most visitors out of both libraries mentioned before, considering in mind also the fact that the population of this location is significantly lower than previous both. Some of the interesting items in the collection include 1215 copies of Magna Carta, Diamond Sutra, the world's earliest dated printed book, printed in 868, the Gutenberg Bible, earliest printed book in Europe, Mozart's musical diary, Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventure Underground, and the Beatles' handwritten song lyric. Number 10. Okay, now the last one. The first ever Harry Potter was a short story published in Communist Poland in 1972. Now that's interesting, isn't it? A short story titled Harry Potter was published in a Communist Poland on March the 19th, 1972 in a literary magazine Życie Literackie. Its author, Jan Rostworowski, was a Polish poet and short story writer. In 1940, as a soldier of the Polish army, he came to Great Britain, where he spent 28 years. Rostworowski's text, published 25 years before Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, tells the story of a 17-year-old Harry Potter who, unlike J.K. Rowling's protagonist, does not receive his Hogwarts letter. In fact, his life is rather ordinary. As a shopkeeper, he delivers the original Krakowian sausage and pickles. He is not quite talkative, as he replies mostly with "oh yeah" and "oh no", and in the end he suddenly vanishes. Boguslav Rostworowski, the son of Jan Rostworowski, explained that the story was in fact the poet's memory from times when he used to deliver meat to an English shop. The character of Harry Potter was to depict the shop owner. Rostworowski made the name up. However, it is important to highlight that the surname Potter was rather popular in England at that time. Apart from the name of the protagonist, the only similarities to J.K. Rowling's work which can be found in the Polish text are 2 passages. One of them is the telephone in Harry's house does not ring but chirps like a bird, which for the Potterheads might resemble magical carrier owls, although it's a bit of a stretch to be honest. The other is that the narrator cast a curse on Mr. P. Apart from that, the texts are not at all alike. It just happens to have the same name of the protagonist. But it is still interesting to know that such weird coincidence can happen in this world. Okay, so those were the 10 book-related interesting facts. I hope you enjoyed listening to them. If you know any other interesting facts, please feel free to share them in the comments section below. And once again, please like and share this episode and subscribe to the channel. It would be greatly appreciated. Until next time, take care, be good, and thank you so much for listening.